right, so here we have a healthy way at helping winter wildlife. We have Paola asking about helping to find food for hummingbirds. That's great. And I apologize, I'm trying to get everybody in as well. It'll be a little bit of me multitasking here. All right. So we're going to get started, and I love the looking for food for different types of birds, and we are going to be talking and focusing on that. So the agenda, I'm just going to touch a little bit on what do animals need in order to survive, some tips on making your backyard winter friendly, and we're going to make our very own bird feeder. I'll have a little video of me making that bird feeder. And it's using upcycled items that you might have at home. So let's get started. My question to you, if you can please type your answer in the chat, is what do animals or what do living things need in order to survive? Can you type that into the chat? What do living things need in order to survive? All right. So we have food, water, shelter, food, water, shelter, food, water, shelter, a good health plan. So Jen Moore is saying water, shelter, food in that order. So most of us have it. Yeah, so I teach, I used to work at the zoo, and we taught a lot about what animals needed to survive. And air is that one I'm not including here, but all the other things that were mentioned are food, water, shelter, and space is one that a lot of folks don't realize that certain animals, depending on what type of animal it is, needs a certain amount of space. And also that space should include a place to raise young. So it'll really just depend on the specific species, but food, water, shelter, and space. And so in this presentation today, we'll be talking a little bit on how we can help birds during this winter time with some of these different resources here. All right. And so our first one we're going to tackle is food. I liked that some people were asking, like, what type of plants are best to support birds during the winter? Or how can hummingbirds find food? Because it is a little bit more difficult during the winter time for folks to, for animals to be able to find those resources they need in order to survive. And food is one of those really big ones. Food gives everything that the energy it needs in order to survive. So we're going to talk a little bit about food and some of the unlikely places that you might not know that animals get food from our backyard. So leaf litter, believe it or not, is very helpful to animals out there during the winter time. And that's and it's really helpful also for your plants and for your soil life, the soil of your plants. So leaf litter, it doesn't look very pretty, but it is very helpful in helping them get food. Sorry, let me admit, folks. Yeah, so obtaining food. Sorry about that. So it might not look so very pretty, but leaving that leaf litter out there, it helps return nutrients back to soils because the insects that are living there will break that down, and then all those nutrients get back into the soil. But it's also home to so many beneficial animals and insects that choose to live under there. It provides a shelter for them. And then it kind of is like a little snack bar for other types of animals. So on that little picture of the leaf litter, you see that little pupa there. But so a lot of animals will do pupate under there. And then when wintertime, when it seeds and maybe other type of food is not as readily available, in that leaf litter, it's really helpful to just leave that there for them. And I know some of us really like our gardens to be nice and tidy. So you could like tidy up a bit, but making sure to leave a bit of leaf litter for the animals. And dead trees and logs as well. I don't recommend leaving dead trees and logs close to your house and kind of leaning up against your house because, you know, that could cause termite damage. But a lot of animals also choose to live inside of the dead trees and logs, and insects and mosses and lichen and fungus, all kinds of different wildlife make that their home. And it's kind of like a cafeteria for wildlife. A lot of animals can hide their food there. I'm thinking of squirrels. And that way it's just a cafeteria there for all the different types of animals that we want to visit our yards. And also so there's a dead trees and logs, but folks also do brush piles. And those brush piles, it could just be like loose leaves and loose branches. And you can do a brush pile. Also, don't recommend that close to your home, but it helps return those nutrients back into the soil. But it also provides a shelter and a space for animals to hide if predators are coming, but also a lot of insects and stuff will go in there, and it's a great source of food. For the next picture, you'll see seed heads and berries. I know when we're gardening, we like to trim back a lot of our perennials during this time of year because all the flowers are gone. But it's really great for different types of wildlife to have access to those trees, to those seeds, I apologize. So the perennials still have those seeds that are there that aren't very visible to us, but we tend to snip those back. But those seed heads are very important, and the animals will, especially birds, will eat on those seeds, and it's a great little snack for them. And then sometimes larvae of like flies or insects will choose that as a home, and then so it also provides a protein-packed snack for birds as well. So sometimes leaving our yard a little bit untidy really does help our wildlife, especially during the winter time when it's just a little bit more difficult for them to find food. So that's just kind of what we can do in our backyard, but we can also talk a little bit about bird feeders. So I did get a lot of my information from the National Wildlife Federation, and they partner with Wild Birds Unlimited. And this little video just talks about the different types of bird feeders. And bird feeders are just a really fun and entertaining way for us to observe birds close up and connect with nature, and especially during sheltering in place right now. And during the winter time, it really helps provide food for them. So we're gonna watch this little video of the bird feeders. All right, let me get that started. I'm sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to have to stop share and then start that over again. Let's try it like this. My computer sound.
Of feeding the birds, because every time you walk by a window, look outside, something's different is happening every minute of the day, every day of the year.
Yeah, and actually I think for me personally, Bizajewski with the National Wildlife Federation, back with Jim Carpenter from Wild Birds Unlimited. And today we're going to be talking about setting a bird feeding station. So let's get right to it. We've got this great pole here. Tell me about why it's important to feed birds. I know you kick off your book, The Joy of Bird Feeding, with a whole section on feeding. So why is that important?
Well, there's a lot of reasons to feed the birds. Some are just to help birds, wildlife in general, and some of it just comes from the personal joy of feeding the birds, because every time you walk by a window, look outside, something's different is happening every minute of the day, every day of the year.
Yeah, and actually I think for me personally, I want to make sure that I'm helping the birds, right? We know there's some scary numbers out there about the decline of birds all across North America, and creating a wildlife habitat garden and getting it certified is one way that everybody can make a difference. And putting out a feeding station like this is not only going to help the birds, but it's going to help give people a great opportunity to see birds up close and personal in one specific spot in their yard. And I think that's kind of awesome.
Well, at Wild Birds Unlimited, we're happy to be working with National Wildlife Federation, because it's kind of like, if you've gone to the work of creating a wildlife habitat, why not be rewarded?
That's right,
and
yeah.
get it certified that you've done a great job.
Well, one of the things that we say at National Wildlife Federation is that wildlife habitat gardens are for wildlife, but they're also for people.
Absolutely.
And again, I think a feeding station is a great kind of people spot in the wildlife habitat garden, because it's going to attract birds to the same spot every single day for you to see and enjoy. We've got all sorts of different feeders up here. I really like this hopper feeder, but I did spill some seed when I was filling it. So I'm actually really curious about that tube over there, because it looks like it's just a solid block of seed, right?
That's right. For the same amount of food that goes into both of these feeders, this probably lasts about 6-7 times longer, because the birds have to grab each little seed off, and you get to watch them longer because they're sitting here grabbing it off.
And less mess.
So
right?
It's less mess, it's very convenient, yeah, you could even go into it, takes less trucking and shipping to move it across country, and so it's more sustainable.
Right, and one of the things about your seed mixes is that they're custom blends, and you're only using seeds that the birds actually like to eat. There's no filler in there.
No fillers.
I mean, and check this out. I mean, I want to eat this.
I would eat that too. So that one has sunflower seeds, tree nuts, fruit pieces. And so the birds you bring in, the greater diversity of foods, the greater diversity of birds.
Right, and you know what, that actually really underscores a really important point here, is that birds naturally find food out in the environment from the native plants that are out there. So the seeds, the nuts, the berries that the plants are naturally producing, that's the natural way to feed birds, and also the insects that those plants support. But again, a feeding station like this can really supplement that, and again, bring the birds right to one particular spot in your yard where you can see and enjoy them. And when you provide those natural forms of food, supplement with feeders, that is one of the 4 habitat components that all wildlife need. They're food, water, cover, places to raise young. And if you provide those 4 things and you commit to maintaining your yard in a natural, sustainable way, and by the way, buying seed blends that don't waste and that are feeders that are made out of recycled materials can help you do that. Those are the 5 things that you need to do if you want to get certified wildlife habitat status from the National Wildlife Federation for your own yard or garden space.
So you go into a Wild Birds Unlimited store, and our certified bird feeding specialist can help you figure out what best to do in your yard.
All right. So bird feeders, I love that video because it was very helpful in kind of seeing all the different types of bird feeders that we could use. And like they said, when choosing bird feed, you really want to choose what is really going to be beneficial for the birds, not just filler. And so if you go to the Wild Birds Unlimited, there is some in the Bay Area, but they provide a good resource in how to choose bird feed, which is really, really useful. Check that out on their website. If you are if you're interested in doing bird feeders, some good tips are making sure that the feeding stations are not all in one space, but they're dispersed throughout your yard. And you want to feed with moderation. You want to make sure that the feeders are clean, and so you regularly want to wash them with hot water and let them air dry before completely feeding them again, filling them up again. And any type of seed that falls to the bottom, you want to keep an eye on that and keep that nice and clean. And you want to put the bird feeder in a location that if predators were to come for the birds, so around 10 to 12 feet from low shrubs and bush piles, so that if a predator were to come, or a cat or something into the backyard, you are able to, the birds are able to kind of find a quick place to hide from predators. Yeah, so those are some good tips. I'm going to go on to next to the hummingbirds. So hummingbirds are wonderful to see in our backyard, but like we all know during, sorry, let me let some more people in. Like we all know that during the winter season, some of the flowers are not readily available to them. And hummingbirds require a lot of energy to constantly keep them. And so sometimes you might find hummingbirds in your yard that kind of have gone into a little bit of a torpor because it's gotten too cold. So sometimes you could just make sure that they're put in a safe space, and then they'll kind of wake up once it gets a little bit warmer. That's been very interesting to see. But what you could do is make, if you have a hummingbird feeder, if you purchase one, you can make your own nectar for them. It's just using 1 part sugar, 4 parts water. You boil that to sterilize that water and dissolve the sugar crystals. You don't need to add any food red coloring. It's not beneficial to the hummingbirds. And then you just want to make sure that you keep that hummingbird feeder nice and clean by washing it every couple days. And one that I do recommend, especially during the winter time, is one that has a perch for them. And that's because they use a lot of energy by flapping their wings and kind of trying to get the hummingbird the nectar if they don't have a place to perch. So especially during the winter time, if you're filling one up, having somewhere where they get, like this one is a good one, just so that they can perch and not have to use that extra energy. And the next one is water. Water is so important. And most people think, oh, well, during the summertime is when animals need water. But during the wintertime, animals do need water also in order to survive. And it's not all the time as readily available. So bird baths are a good example. And birds also need it to bathe. So in order to keep their feathers in top condition. So they need to be able to stay clean. And so having that bird bath there allows them to drink, but it also allows them to keep their feathers in great condition. And that's really important because if their feathers are nice and clean, they're able to kind of puff themselves up and have those air pockets in their feathers so that they can stay nice and warm during the winter time, which is very beneficial. And then also birds need them to drink so that they can maintain their metabolism, especially during dry, cold weather. And so bird baths, you can buy a pre-made bird bath like the one that you see here, or you can make your own. So I have just like a plant saucer, a large plant saucer at the kind of just on the ground, and I fill it up with water every time when I'm going out to water my plants. And then I just kind of dump it and then put some new water in there so it's nice and clean. I kind of just started doing that maybe a couple months ago, and I didn't really notice if birds were coming, but my roommate, while she was washing, as she was watering her garden, she is like, hey, did you put that out there? I've noticed a lot of little birds come and visit, which is really cool. And so you can do a plant saucer. I have a pretty big one, or you can even do a ceramic bowl and place it in, like, if you have a tree trunk or something there. Some people put it in like large plant pots with some soil in there, and they can put a ceramic bowl in there. And that way it's nice and stable. It's like a fun activity if you're going to do that as a family. So if you get this ceramic pot or a plastic pot or anything like that, you guys can paint it and decorate it and then put that soil in there and then make your own bird bath by adding that ceramic bowl to the top. While birds are unlikely to completely submerge themselves during the cold weather, they're going to use it to drink water and stay clean. But for smaller birds, in order to make that a little bit more attractive to them, you can also add maybe some rocks to the bottom or some twigs or anything like that, so they can still stand on it and perch on it and not completely get submerged into the water, because they don't want to get super cold while they're out there. So that's a really cool. And see, during the summer months, that what's during the summer months, it's really helpful as well to have the bird baths out, but also putting some of those rocks or marbles or things like that help for other types of animals like butterflies and bees and that type of stuff, because bees get really thirsty during the summer months. So you can help animals during the winter, but also during the summer with providing them water. And you're also always going to want to set your bird bath near like 10 to 12 feet of places where they can go, birds can, or any other animal can go hide. So some type of cover to avoid if there are any predators are coming. And what's nice about the higher bird baths like these, they can kind of see predators coming if it's like a house cat or anything like that, and they can avoid them. And then having that cover close by is really nice. We don't get snow here, but in certain places they do sell like heaters that you can put into the bird bath, and or heaters, bird baths that already have heaters there so that the water doesn't freeze over. And you always want to make sure that you keep your water clean. And so I like to change mine daily, but I feel like every few days would be okay. And also keeping it clean, because if birds are visiting, there might be bird droppings and different types of stuff. So you're going to want to have like a little scrub brush and clean it every so often. And you don't have to have like a hose really close by. Even if you just have like a little bucket with some water and you change it every so often, that will be really helpful to the birds. And here's a little video on just kind of like their bird bath that the Wild Birds Unlimited has, which I found really informational. And then during the summer, you're
Hey
going to
everybody,
want to change
naturalist David
more
Mizejewski
often.
with the National Wildlife Federation, here with Jim Carpenter from Wild Birds Unlimited, who is the champion of our Certified Wildlife Habitat Program. That's part of our Garden for Wildlife movement. Now, Jim and I just set up this bird feeding station. And so now we're going to talk about another habitat component, which is
water. So as you know, when you feed them, they also get thirsty. And so it's important to provide water 12 months of the year. And summertime is what most people think, but in the winter, there's a whole lot of need for water, because a lot of times it's frozen. It's hard to find water.
And so a simple bird bath is a really great way to provide this essential habitat component. And it's, you know, it's not just for drinking, right? It's for bathing too. Birds need to keep their feathers clean.
It's really year-round bird feather health, for thirst and the whole bit. So we're pouring water here into this concrete bird bath, and it has a lot of great things to it. It's at a great height, can keep it away from the cats.
Right.
I
love the fact that, you know, since it's made out of concrete, this sucker isn't going anywhere. It's sturdy, it's not going to get knocked over, and you know, that's actually good because you don't have to worry about it, you know, sort of getting dumped out when you're not around.
That's right. And this is my favorite kind of bird bath, your traditional bird bath, but bird baths can be all type. Could be just even a dog bowl.
Sure.
Or it could be a giant fountain and a water feature with a pond and all that. But even just doing a little bit is important.
Yeah, I agree. And this device here is also really neat. Tell us about that.
This is called a water wiggler, and if you look, there's a little spinny thing here that creates vibrations. The mosquitoes will not land on here and lay their eggs, create the little larvae, and create new mosquitoes.
And I think that's a good thing that everybody everywhere can appreciate.
It's a really good thing.
So, and you know, the other thing that you can do for mosquitoes is just dump the bird bath out every couple days, because it takes them about 5 to 7 days to emerge as winged adults. So, and you kind of need to do that for the birds anyway to keep the water.
They don't want a clean bird bath. Nobody wants to bathe in a dirty bath water,
Exactly.
So keep it clean.
All right, so water is as simple as providing a bird bath in your yard. That's one of the components of habitat. They're food, water, cover, places to raise.
All right, so water is so important. And I thought that little device, especially for us here, like during the summer months, would be really beneficial, because, you know, during the summer months here, any type of stagnant water needs to be dumped because of mosquitoes. Sorry, we still have folks coming in, so I'm just ignoring submitting them as we go. And so shelter is also really important. And I already mentioned kind of some of these, the leaf litter, the dead trees and logs and brush piles. They provide food, but they also provide so much more in providing shelter for the animals. And so leaf litter actually really helps with like fertilizing your soil, but it also is habitat for so many other animals, not just birds. There's could be salamanders or snails or worms. And sometimes if you live close by to a water source, there might be even little frogs. So those guys just dig underneath and stay nice and safe there, but also then provides food source for birds. And dead trees like this, like the one in the picture, this is called a snag. That is a tree that is kind of still upright but dead. That just nationwide, dead trees like this provide vital habitat for more than 1,000 species of wildlife, just nationwide. So I know that sometimes we see it as an eyesore, but it could be really important in providing habitat and food for different types of animals. And just like we mentioned earlier, those brush piles, if you have those and you're able to make them and kind of have them further away from the house, it provides spaces for them as well. And these dead trees also provide like homes for like bats and different types of birds. Squirrels might hide their food in there. So food source, but also a place for animals to perch and kind of find shelter in if they need to, which is always really beneficial. And so we were talking a little bit about native plants and how those can be beneficial. So we talked a little bit earlier about the seeds and the berries that birds can grab. So we don't want to trim plant life back because those seeds are very beneficial. So what really is helpful is having native plants, because when the flowers and the other types of food sources that are gone, native plants really kind of have evolved with the animals in this space, and they also provide food. So this plant here is a native plant, and it has these little berries, and you'll kind of see this a lot. Like as I walk around my neighborhood, I see a lot of plants with berries now, and that's a really a good food source. These two links are really great. Let me see if I can click on one and see if we can show that. Is everyone able to see this come up? You can tell me in the chat, that would be helpful. Let me see. Are you able to see the link of the Audubon that I just put up? Someone could just say yes or no, that would be helpful. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Jen. And so these is a really cool resource. You can just put in your zip code, and I can put mine in here, and you can see, and it'll just bring up the different types of native plants that are available that you can purchase or go out and get. And also the Audubon one tells you what type of birds it attracts, which is really cool. Just waiting for it to load. But yeah, I was able to, so here you can see like results, the type of birds it might attract, the whatever plant it might be. All right here. And then you can, if you add your email on there, you can add it to your list, and then you can just like, oh, I really like this. I'd like to attract this type of bird. It helps this way. So that was that one of the one picture I had there, the California false buckhorn. And these types of birds would be the ones that are interested in, and they provide fruit, the little fruit for them. And so you can make your list, and you can add them to your yard, and it could be really helpful for them. So like here, if you're looking to attract hummingbirds, this California figwort might be a beneficial one for you to put there. So this is a great resource. This is the Audubon one. Let me see if I can show you the other one. This is the National Wildlife Federation Native Plant Finder. And then you can choose for native plants, or if you want to try to kind of attract butterflies. I'm going to go to the native plant one, but this is definitely one you can explore as well. And you would just put your zip code in here, and we can see how that might look a little bit different there. And then these are the ones that would do well in your area, and they could host moths, and they can also host butterflies, which are also nice to see in our yard. And then it goes from flowers and grasses to trees and shrubs, which is always really cool to see. So we did use this resource. We wanted to attract butterflies in our backyard, and we just had like a little spot we were going to try out, and we did use this resource and we planted some, and we have seen some butterflies stop by. It's still really small, but it's been very helpful to have these resources available. So I'm going to close that and go back to the slideshow here. So I will put these links into the chat when we are done with the presentation, so everyone has those available. And then just a reminder, you know, we want to make sure we help wildlife, but we want to also make sure we keep them safe, and we don't want to attract certain type of wildlife that might not be beneficial for us. So keeping your cat food or dog food out overnight is one of the things we really want to avoid, because you can attract mice and rats and raccoons and skunks. And so we want to make sure we avoid that. I've seen videos of raccoons just kind of swarming cats before, and the cats are just like, go ahead and take my food. So just making sure. I used to, when I was in school, I used to leave my dog in the backyard for just while I was gone at school, and I used to put his food out. And there was a scrub jay that would come, and every time, knowing that what time I would leave, and would take some of his food. So you want to make sure that you're only leaving the food out while they're eating during that time. So just to keep your pet safe, and then also you safe as well. But just kind of just as the reminders, if you're really interested in trying out those bird feeders, you just want to make sure that you keep them clean and you water them periodically, and you want to choose that bird seed that is beneficial to them, not necessarily all the ones that have all that filler and all that stuff in there. And the hummingbird feeder, we did that recipe, and I can put that back up. You want to make sure that you're changing it every so often. And during the winter time, if you have a hummingbird feeder that has a perch, would be really beneficial. And then those bird baths, if you're going to make your own bird bath and improvise, or if you want to buy one that's a little bit higher up, you can always just make sure you have that water clean. You can change the water every couple of days, just to make sure that they have healthy water. And then keeping those brush piles and, you know, leaf litter and all of those things out for them. I feel like during wintertime, it's something that we can kind of be okay with, and knowing that it's helping wildlife get their food that they need and the shelter that they need while they are out there. Because it's sometimes, you know, out there when it's cold, it can be a little bit rough out there. So I have a little quick video for us on how to make our very own bird feeder. And this is just using upcycled items that you will have at home.
Hello everyone, my name is Betty Vialta. I'm an educational aide with Open Space Authority. Today we're going to be making our very own bird feeder, so you can place it in your backyard, which is a great time to do this since we are sheltering in place, and you can get to see the local wildlife that might be attracted to it. The supplies you'll need are a toilet paper roll or a pine cone if you have those available. I got this from one of our neighbors. A string or yarn and some scissors, peanut butter or any type of nut butter, and something to spread it with, a plate or a bowl with any type of seed that you're going to be using. You're going to just spread that peanut butter all over your toilet paper roll. If it's a natural peanut butter, you're going to want to make sure that you really mix that up nice and well, because the oil does separate. And you're just going to spread that all around your toilet paper roll. This will be a great activity to do with your family. And if you have kids, you can always put down newspaper on your table in case you think it's going to get messy, in order to protect your table. So once you spread that all around your toilet paper roll, you're going to just spread the seed. I'm using steel cut oats, and this is just as an example. Then you're going to grab that string and place it through the middle of that toilet paper roll. And then you're just going to tie it around. You're going to measure and make sure you have a nice amount of length depending on where you're going to place that. And when you're placing your bird feeder, you want to make sure that there's brush piles or something, some type of coverage for the birds to be able to hide if they see any predators coming. It just makes them feel nice and safe. You can do the same thing with the pine cone. You'll just be spreading peanut butter all around it, very similar like you did to the toilet paper roll. And then you'd also just be spreading your seed around that as well. You'll just use your yarn or your string and tie that up. And then you'll just go out and choose a good spot in your backyard. And this will help you be able to attract certain types of birds and get a chance for you to observe them. Thank you.
All right, and what I do recommend is if you're using peanut butter or any type of nut butter, you want to make sure, I would use a natural one, but you specifically want to make sure that it doesn't have any synthetic sweeteners or anything like that, because that could be dangerous. So I use just the natural stuff, and it does separate, so you kind of have to really mix it up, but it's always really helpful. And that is all. Thank you. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of yours. And I'm so sorry. It was really hard for me to see the chat that was going on while I was in presentation mode. So I'm going to kind of scroll back and kind of see if there were any questions. And okay, so the audio is back on. We have cats in our neighborhood. How far from a fence should we put a feeder? And how often is regularly? So regularly, I feel like changing the feeder, it was going to be definitely dependent on how much use you are, how many birds and use you're getting. So I would definitely go out and check every week or so and kind of see how it is. You're going to want to be cleaning up the stuff that's falling down, but washing it, maybe like doing a good wash, maybe 3 to 4 times a year is something I would recommend. But in that in the resources that I put up earlier, but I'm going to send as an email, it goes into detail exactly how often you should wash it. And I'm thinking from the fence, you definitely just want to keep the bird feeder in a place where there's some coverage for them and a place for them to be able to go to really quickly if a predator is coming. So I ideally wouldn't put it really too close to the fence, because if cats are able to climb up there, then they're kind of able to kind of scope out that bird feeder. Okay, good. So Jen mentioned that the sugar water is a calorie supplement, but not a food replacement. And so hummingbirds will sometimes also eat mosquitoes and small bugs as a protein. So that's why having those logs and those leaf piles are good if there are little insects and stuff that are flying around there. And yes, Doug, so the bird feeder, the bird bath on the ground can make it an easy prey for cats. So it is best to have it higher up. I have mine on the ground. I have a dog, so I don't have any cats visiting our backyard at all. I'm pretty sure about that. But if I did, I would prefer probably choose one higher up. And I would do an activity out of it, like find a nice pot and put some soil in there and do a little ceramic bowl, and I could paint that because I really like painting and doing those types of things. Yeah, so Ron just also had some other ones that Calscape and Calflora are some really good native plant, California native plant resources as well. And if anybody else has any other questions, hopefully I can answer them or send you in the right direction into resources. So Kim just mentioned that she picked up unsalted sunflower seeds at the grocery store. Yeah, so they really like the little black seeds that they mentioned in the video. I think they're called oil seeds, I believe. And those all types of birds really like, and they're just really beneficial for them. So those are cool. How do I squirrel proof a bird feeder? So that's an interesting question. So squirrels are so smart. And so you could buy a bird proof feeder and you will still see squirrels being able to try to get that. I think putting it somewhere where the squirrel isn't able to jump on is probably one of the easier ways of bird proofing that. But it is really, it is really hard to bird proof, because if they're able to kind of jump on it, they have found a way. But the ones that are like poles and they have a more difficult type climbing, and you saw that one that they had that little specific thing over it, so the squirrels couldn't get to it. But I'm not gonna lie, the squirrels are pretty smart, and they always will find a way. What can be used to clean the bird back that has algae? Oh, that's a great question, Carol. They did mention that you can do a bleach and water solution to clean the bird baths every so often. And that's just in case it has any like fecal matter or anything like that. So I'm assuming that could also really help with the algae there as well. And I can look up the solution. I believe it was like 1 part bleach to 9 parts water, and then that should be able to get it nice and clean. Ron is mentioning that there is a Master Gardeners program at Marshall Cottle Park, and they have great examples there of habitats for birds and bees. So definitely try and check that out. Yes, Ron, I was lucky when I first started, I got to go visit that. And so that was, it's a really, really great park. The squirrel jar feeders put a squirrel jar feeder near bird feeders and fill up at the same time, and squirrels are the good food for raptors. So a squirrel jar feeder is what Jen is recommending. And then she has also a little known fact that green algae is harmless to birds. Changing water often to keep oxygen levels is really good for them. Well, thank you, Jen. That's wonderful, wonderful information there. And so I am going to be emailing everybody the resources. Let me see if I can pull them up. I tried to link them at the top here of the Zoom, but it doesn't seem like anyone can see them. So I am going to be emailing them out. One of them is the National Wildlife Federation on how to get your backyard certified. And it just had really good information and tips on like the different sections, like for water, for food, that could be incorporated. And then I also have a bird feeder flyer on how to make a bird feeder out of orange peel, so it's biodegradable. And then also the different guides from the Audubon guide for bird feeding, for bird seed, and for different types of bird feeders. If anyone has any other questions, please add them to the chat. If not, thank you guys so much for joining me. Sorry for the little hiccups that we had. It's a little bit different using Zoom meetings over Zoom webinar. But I appreciate everybody joining us, and I hope you all got to learn a little thing. I'd love to know which thing that you might incorporate into your yard. So if you want to add that into the chat and kind of say like, oh, I might just leave my leaf litter, or I might do a little brush pile for the animals. I'd love to hear what everyone is going to incorporate into their yard to help our animal life during the winter. Thank you, Jen. Thank you. Oh, there's 2 Jens. Thank you, Pat, and thank you, Jen, for joining us, and Lindsay. I hope that everyone takes a little bit from this presentation and can incorporate at least one thing into their backyard. Ooh, Kim says, I have lots of litter and seed heads and natives and would like to add water and a feeder. Yeah, that will, I feel like then you're almost on your way to being National Wildlife Federation, your backyard becoming a wildlife habitat. And you can check out their site and you can get a plaque and get certified on that, which is really, really cool. A little bowl of water for a wild geese at river. So Vanessa's in New York City, so she's probably going to put out a water feeder. Susan's going to leave her leaf litter in place. Well, that's great. That's what I've been doing. My yard is a bit messy, but I want to rake them up, but I'm like, no, it is great for the birds. So I'm going to leave that there. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. I hope that you all took just a little bit of information, and hopefully you can help make your backyards a wildlife habitat for all of our animal friends that are out there. You know, it's hard out there for all of us, and I really do hope that we can help them. And if you put a bird feeder out, please take pictures and see if you can try to identify them. It's a great activity to do with your family. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great day.